Hi everybody, welcome back. This is lecture 2 of Unit 1, Crime and its Consequences. So today what we're going to be talking about is really a continuation of the first chapter in terms of what happens when a crime is committed. But basically, we first have to get to the point where a crime becomes a crime. So why are things illegal? Where does it come from? Who decides whether or not something is illegal? And what is the punishment for those types of actions? Also, towards the end of the lecture, we are going to measure crime, focusing a little bit on crime statistics, measurement tools, different agencies, what they measure, and how all of this ties together for us as social science researchers. So, to begin with, definitions of crime. How do we get to the point where a behavior is determined to be a crime? So it's a very controversial issue among a lot of individuals, both in the academic and lay sphere. So if something is dangerous, wouldn't it automatically become a crime? But there are dangerous behaviors that are harmful to individuals more so than just the person doing them that may be harmed by it, but they're not necessarily crimes. But then on other occasions, similar behaviors might be crimes. So for example, smoking, we have been told our entire lives, is dangerous and harmful to your health. If you smoke around others, you have the chance of giving them secondhand smoke. Smoking can often lead to different types of cancer and sometimes can lead to death. However, smoking is not an illegal behavior. If you're smoking tobacco products, you can go to a convenience store right now and go buy them. However, if you're smoking marijuana in certain states, you can also go to convenience stores and buy them. In other states, you cannot go to those places and buy marijuana. So it's a similar behavior. There's no real difference between smoking a cigarette and smoking a marijuana cigarette in terms of the way that you do it. But it's a legal distinction between the two behaviors. One is dangerous to yourself, or I'm sorry, both are dangerous to yourself, but one is illegal and the other is not. However, there are certain behaviors that are considered to be crimes based on their dangerousness and their severity. So probably nobody would argue that it's okay for me to kill you in your sleep, right? Murder is harmful to the person who I am killing. So it's certainly going to be against the law, and there are no real loopholes around that. Murder is murder, it's harmful, it's dangerous, and it's going to be against the law. So a pretty clear-cut definition of what it means to be a crime in that instance. But all things are not so cut and dry. So when we talk about definitions of crime, really we have to look at it from both a legal and a moral or a social aspect of it. So most of our laws really come from a normative or social mores standpoint. And what these types of standpoints come from are just regular manners. Social mores and norms really say it gives a sort of reference point of behavior, if you will. So if you think about it, it's just basic manners. When you're growing up, your mother says, chew with your mouth closed. When you get on an elevator, there's no rule that you have to stand and turn around and face the doors and not talk to anybody in there, but it's basically what we do because that's the way that we were raised. That's how we've seen other people do it. We don't stand around and stare at the person next to us. It's not against the law to do that, but it's certainly what our social mores dictate. Our social mores can also dictate that we shouldn't kill people. It's a harmful and dangerous behavior that is against our moral beliefs. I believe it is morally wrong to take the life of another person. So some of our mores translate into law. This was the foundation of them, and now we have a legal definition that comes from that place that also says that it is against the law. Not all of our laws have a firm tradition in social mores. However, there is still a legal definition that's attached to them. So this legal definition states that upon committing an action, that action is a violation of criminal law. There is a penal code attached to it that says that that action is prohibited, and there is an adequate punishment that is attached to it to stop the individual or try to deter the individual from committing that crime. If the crime is committed, then I have the right as the government to penalize you accordingly. Social mores might not have the same sort of punishment attached to them, but that is what makes the distinction between a legal definition of crime and a social definition of crime: punishment and an intentional violation of a penal code. But there are some problems still with this legal definition. Even though I know I'm violating that penal code, even though I might potentially face a punishment, there are still some certain things that I'm willing to do in order to make sure that I engage in the behaviors that I want to engage in. So gambling. Most states have lottery systems. That's approved levels of gambling. Some states have casinos, approved versions of gambling. If I go onto a black market and I'm making bets with a bookie or a dealer on football games that it's not approved in my state, if I'm not in Nevada at Las Vegas in the casinos and I'm not gambling there, but I'm running an illegal poker ring out of my house, that's an illegal form of gambling. However, it's a victimless crime. Maybe I wipe you out and you have no more money, but there's not necessarily the same level of harm that I'm engaging with compared to other types of crime. Prostitution. Now, many people can make very strong and valid arguments about the social and physical and emotional harm that is associated with prostitution for the prostitutes, but at base level, it is a business transaction between two consenting adults in most instances. However, prostitution has moral foundations that say it should be a moral outcry to not go ahead and do these types of activities, that you should not engage in prostitution. So we have it on the books. Prostitution is everywhere. It's illegal, but it's everywhere. However, how do you make the distinction between legal and illegal prostitution? If I go back to Nevada, there are certain places where I can go to brothels and it's legal. However, if I were to go pick up a prostitute on a street corner here in East Texas, not the same level of prostitution and definitely a different version of legal and illegal behaviors. But there are exceptions to the rules, so prostitution definitely one of them. And then the use of illegal drugs. Not all drugs have always remained illegal. You used to be able to get cocaine, you used to be able to get opium, you used to get all sorts of different things for medicinal purposes. It was very, very common for people to use opium to take away pain or to go ahead and drown themselves out from the life that they were living. If you think about it, morphine is a form of opium. Morphine after the Civil War used to be rampant because you had all of these soldiers running around with limbs that were knocked off or that were amputated after the war, and the morphine helped take the edge off, helped take the pain away. Morphine now is very, very regulated, and you might only get it in the hospital if you're there. So it's illegal in one sense, totally legal in an approved, prescribed setting. Right now, our country is going through an upheaval with the change in marijuana laws. We now have many states who approve of medicinal marijuana, and we have 2 states now that have approved recreational marijuana use. So why is it okay for some states to engage in medical or recreational marijuana use, but other states still very much outlaw it? What difference does a border make? So you see that some of these laws, there are problems with these legal definitions. It's very, very, very circumstantial. It's very much just up to the people who are making the laws. There might not be a moral argument for why you should not engage in marijuana use, but really it's a circumstantial type of law that is in place because certain people wish it to be there. Okay, so when we're talking about crime as a whole, there are certain elements that have to go in it in order for crime to really be a crime. In the United States, unless these following elements are present, then we don't necessarily have a true crime, and then the defendant, if that person is on trial or is going through the process that we discussed in the first lecture, if one of these elements are not there, then they could be acquitted or they could be found not guilty at the time of their trial, or maybe the charges don't even go through to get to that point. So we will go through each of these individually, but this is a really good chart that shows you guys how we get to the point of a complete crime. Okay, the first element of crime is harm. So if I engage in a specific behavior, does that behavior manifest itself into harm for my intended victim? So if I take a firearm and I shoot you with that firearm and you die, the causal link between the two is my firing the firearm results in the harm that is inflicted on you, which might be death. However, it does not have to be physical harm, it could be verbal. The harm does not have to manifest itself in a physical situation. Verbal, emotional abuse happens all the time, and if it gets to the point where that harm is taking place, then it could, in theory, be considered a crime. So the physical harm is not a key element, but certainly is the most common. The second element is legality. So in order for a crime to take place, that action has to be against the law. So there has to be something on the books that says this behavior is forbidden, and we cannot apply laws retroactively. That's where this ex post facto thing comes in. That's basically saying you cannot punish someone after the fact. So let's say all of a sudden Texas legislatures make eating apples illegal. I don't know why they would, but let's just go with this very simple example, right? So I go down to Brookshire's and I buy myself a bag of apples. And I'm eating the apples, and I don't know that there's this law on the books and nobody has made it very clear, and the store is selling the apples. And one of the local Tyler Police Department officers sees me eating this apple and immediately arrests me. Well, when I was eating this apple, it was still legal for me to eat apples. That law says that eating apples is illegal after 5 o'clock. It's 3 in the afternoon. You cannot punish me after the fact. This law was not on the books when I bought that apple or when I started eating it, and you cannot punish me after the fact. So it was legal when I was doing the action, and now the law comes in later. It's not a retroactive thing. You also cannot increase the amount of punishment that is given to me. So if eating apples became illegal, I ate an apple after the law went into effect, the punishment was then you had to give up the apple. Later on, you still catch me eating the apple. Now the new punishment is death. You cannot kill me for eating that original apple. You cannot kill me for eating the apple that was originally, all I had to do was give that apple up. So there are different things that go into ex post facto laws, but really the biggest thing that happens is retroactivity. You cannot punish me for something that I did when it was legal. That's the most common time it is used. All right. The next element of the crime is actus reus. This is basically the act. It's just a Latin term for the word act, really. So it's the crime. So I engage in the specific behavior. It has to be proven that I did this. This can also mean things that I did not do. So I could have killed somebody, but what if that person was drowning and I did nothing to save them? My inaction might also result in a crime in specific jurisdictions. So sometimes it's an intentional action, sometimes it's negligent behavior. We also see that mens rea comes into it. So we have the actus reus, which is the action, and mens rea is the criminal intent. So I killed you. That was the actus reus, the physical act of killing you. The criminal intent was that I wanted you dead. I intended to kill you. So what this says is you cannot punish me for accidents. What if I'm driving down the street and you are at fault walking through the crosswalk and run in front of my car? I don't have time to stop. I hit you and you die. It's an accident on my part. I have no intention to kill you, but you are still dead. So you have to have both take place in order for a crime to occur. Sometimes we have negligence also occurring. As we stated before in the previous slide, Actus Reus can either occur when a crime takes place where I intentionally am doing this, or if I fail to do something. So my drowning instance was my example last screen. What happens if in this instance with negligence, I have a baby. I am taking care of this baby for a while, and then all of a sudden I decide that I have better things to do and I don't want to be a mother, so I'm going to let that baby, I'm not going to feed that child, I'm not going to change his diaper, I'm not going to bathe it, I'm just going to let it sit there in the crib and cry and scream. I am now negligent because by not feeding that child, I am exposing him or her to certain harms, right? So sometimes by not doing things, your inaction results in harm too. But the criminal intent is still there. I'm a mother who doesn't want to be a mother anymore. The intent is I'm not going to feed my baby. I know I'm not feeding that child. I know that child needs nourishment to survive. My inaction might lead to future harm for that baby. And what we see is that when these things take place and an action occurs and maybe the intent is there, I know I'm doing wrong, I still engage in that behavior, people try to get out of their crime or their criminal responsibility through a variety of legal defenses. So you see people all the time say, I'm not guilty by reason of insanity. I was not in the right mindset at the time of that crime. This is something that has to be legally proven. This is not I acted out in a fit of rage because I found my lover in bed with somebody else. This is I have long histories of mental instability, and this is a clinical diagnosis type thing. Or I'm not guilty because I was underage. I'm a juvenile, I'm 12 years old, I have no idea how to handle a gun, I find a gun, I'm just playing with the gun, it goes off, I kill someone, I still have killed that person, but the intent was not there, I'm too young to know any better, someone else is at fault for letting me have exposure to this firearm. I acted under duress. I had no reason to go ahead and kill somebody, but it was either me or him, and somebody else was holding a gun to my head, so I had to kill you in order to survive. There's a variety of different defenses for to get out of your criminal responsibility. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Self-defense is a very, very common legal defense that a lot of people use. I killed that person because they were attacking me and I had to try and fight for my own life. I acted in self-defense. We see it all the time. It doesn't always work out, but people still try to use these legal defenses to get out of the crime. Most often they use this legal defense when they know that the act has taken place. I have a dead body here. It's very clear that someone killed this person. We think it was you. You were there. You were holding the smoking gun. Now I'm using this legal defense to get out of it. I can't disprove that somebody was killed. Like you said, I have a body here. How do I get out of the legal responsibility for it? So the defenses come into play quite often when people are going through the court process. But it's very difficult to try to disprove the causation between your action and the legal harm. So like I said before, I shoot a gun, I kill someone, the direct causation is myself shooting the gun, kills you, that's your causal link. If the police come by and see me standing over the body holding the gun, and that person has a bullet hole in them, they now have enough evidence to show that causal link is there. However, my defense has to be I did not shoot that person, I did not kill that person. How do you break that causal link? So sometimes the criminal defense gets in the way of this causal link. Sometimes the cause is too clear, too concrete. You cannot break this up. So finally we have concurrence. So this is a good connection between the act and the intent. This is what I was saying before about an accident. If I had no intentions to kill you, I didn't want you dead, you jumped up in front of my car and I didn't have time to stop, the actus reus is still there, but the intent is not there. Sometimes you see this when you have drunk driving cases. Yes, I was drunk and I got behind the wheel. Yes, I still killed you, but there was no intent involved. The intent was not there the same way that it would be as if I planned out your murder for weeks and I knew exactly how I was going to kill you. The action is still there, but the mens rea is absent. So you have to have concurrence in order for the crime on the table to be accurate. And then finally what we have is punishment. If all of these things coincide with one another and you can prove that the harm was there and you can prove that the causal link existed that had me committing the crime, you can show that the concurrence is there between the actus reus and the mens rea, then if I am guilty of the crime, I have to be punished. But you have to have a punishment on the books before I commit the crime in order for me to be punished. So again, ex post facto comes into play, and if there's nothing on the books for me to be punished with, then you cannot punish me. So most crimes have a suitable punishment built into the actual legal definition of what that crime is in order to make sure that there are no problems with this when it comes time to actually punish individuals. So the punishment has to be there, or the threat of punishment, meaning that if I kill someone, I know that there is the possibility of the death penalty. The threat is there. Am I still going to do it? You have to make sure that one or the other are there in order for me to be properly deterred, or if I still do it, to be properly punished. All right. So a little bit more about these degrees and categories of crime. We now have established what it means to actually commit a crime based on legal definition. But crimes can still be divided up into two different categories. So we have mala in se crimes and mala prohibita crimes. Mala in se crimes basically mean that they are rooted in evil. So if you think about it, rape and murder are two fantastic crimes for this category. It has always been illegal. It has always been morally wrong for me to rape someone. It has always been morally wrong for me to kill someone. So no matter how our civilizations evolve over time, no matter how we as a people transition and evolve, rape and murder will probably always still be illegal. Whether or not there's a formal punishment on the books for them, different story, but you have universality where they are morally wrong. Mala prohibita crimes are really illegal because someone says that they are. So as we talked about before with pot use, we have several states that are in the medicinal marijuana stages, several in the recreational use, and some states that still say you cannot smoke pot in our state. There's no real difference between the different states. The borders are just an arbitrary line. These crimes are crimes because somebody says that they are, not because they're rooted in any sort of moral evil. They're crimes because somebody wants this behavior to be illegal. So it's pretty clear how these two different categories set themselves apart from one another. All right. So once crimes are committed, once people go through the process of transitioning through the criminal justice system, people like to keep track of the different crimes. So we have crime statistics and we know the frequency in which people engage in these behaviors. However, because the definitions sometimes are a little bit wonky and we sometimes don't have good analytical skills in some of our departments, what we have are unreliable statistics at the best of times. So what happens if I label a rape as some sort of sexual offense? Not necessarily rape by name, but a sexual offense. So if I'm only keeping statistics on rape, that one crime would not be in that rape category. It would be in a different one, and we're getting things confused here. What happens when the crime goes undetected? I have murdered you, but I hid the body really well, and now the police don't know that you're gone. The police don't know that I have killed you. Sometimes I don't even report crimes to the police. So what if I was sexually assaulted and I don't go and tell anybody? The crime has still taken place, just no official agency has been made aware of it. So there's a variety of different things that take place here that can mess up the crime statistics. The crimes are still taking place. However, we're not seeing an official and very accurate tally of these crimes. Sometimes these statistics don't include what we consider to be the dark figure of crime. And the dark figure of crime are the number of crimes that are not officially recorded by the police. So going back to our sexual assault example, sexual assaults have high dark figures of crime, where we know that the crimes are taking place, but nobody is officially reporting them. I know that I was raped, but I didn't tell anybody about it, so officially there's no record of it. So the true amount of crime, as you look at this figure, is the entire circle. My unreported rape is in there, but it would be in this blue half moon area. It's not reported, but it's still in there in an estimated form. The crime index is composed of crimes that we know have happened. I went and told the police somebody was arrested, somebody was convicted, something of that nature. So the crime index are the crimes that the police know about. The dark figure of crimes are the ones that we estimate have happened, but we don't know for sure and have not been officially recorded by the police. Crime statistics, as we just saw in the last slide, are based on these crime indices. And really, the best record that we have are the ones that are known by the police, because they are the first line of defense for the criminal justice system. If you don't have interactions with the police, you are not going to have interactions with the court. You are not going to have interactions with the correctional system. You have to be arrested and processed officially before you can get to that point. So the ones that are recorded and reported to the police and result in arrest are more accurate than some of the other types of crimes that we see out there that are recorded. Which leads us to the Uniform Crime Report. The UCR is the official crime statistics reporting agency for the United States. And this is headed by the FBI, and they record crimes based on two different types of knowledge. First, if the offense has been made known to the police, and secondly, was a person arrested. So they have two indices based on these two categories. Sometimes we know that an offense has taken place, but no arrest was made and the case goes cold, but we still know that it happened based on the victim testifying to the crime or reporting the crime. Or let's say again, if I have murdered someone, you have found the body, you know that a murder has occurred, you just don't know who has done it. So sometimes you have to make sure that you have those two different distinctions in the indices in order to make sure that crime is being reported on a better, more accurate level. So what is included in the Uniform Crime Report? So there are two categories. The first one is the Part 1 offenses. They are the biggest ones. They're the most violent types of crimes. You see them here. Murder, forcible rape. Forcible rape is much different than other types of sexual offenses, and it is a category on its own. The definition is still a little bit sketchy in terms of what constitutes forcible rape. That's something we can get into later on in the semester, but forcible rape is considered different than other types of sexual offenses. Robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny and theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Here is something that you might not know about this. The two crimes that are reported the most that the police know about are murder and motor vehicle theft. Those are the two crimes that have the largest amount of statistics attached to them. You're probably saying, well, why is that? Because it's very difficult to hide dead bodies without anybody finding out, and to hide motor vehicles without anybody finding out. If you see a car abandoned in a field, maybe it's stolen, right? I have no place to put this. There's only so much space that you can put stolen cars in. So sometimes they're abandoned, sometimes they're taken to junkyards. It's very easy to find stolen vehicles if the thief is not that good of a thief. So they're the most accurately measured offenses in this Part 1 of the UCR. Part 2 includes more offenses, sometimes tied into the Part 1 offenses, but definitely in a category all its own. So I said to you a slide ago, forcible rape is different from other types of sexual offenses. So if you see here, Part 1, number 2, forcible rape is there. Part 2, number 9, includes all other types of sexual offenses. So forcible rape does not include all types of rape. Forcible rape includes some level of force, that they have subdued the victim, so on and so forth. It is not considered the same as other types of rape, such as date rape. Still rape, just not forcible. We see here DUI laws, drunkenness, disorderly conduct, not necessarily things that result in a lot of harm to a victim, but certainly things that are against the law. Vandalism, embezzlement, things like this would be in Part 2, but not considered to be the heavy hitter types of crimes that are present in Part 1. Still things that we need statistics on, but not necessarily those found in Part 1. All right. So, again, as I said at the end of the first lecture, if you have questions, please get in touch with me and talk to me about them. As you can see now after watching 2 lectures, they are just a brief overview of what the entire textbook has to offer. I'm sort of just explaining the general themes and the general ideas that are coming out of that textbook, but it's not a cover-all. So if you need more help or if you need something explained to you better, please get in touch with me before the first unit quiz. So the next chapter I will pick up with explaining crime in lecture 3. We're getting a little bit closer to that first quiz, and we're getting a little bit closer to having our first set of assignments due, so make sure that you're keeping up with everything. So I will talk to you if you guys have any questions or anything, and if not, I will see you all in chapter 3. Have a good day, guys. See you later.